Hello, Moto.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai Hashem, work called Kadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and His unbegotten Son, Bahashem, in the name of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the Lashon Kadash with the tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles where I came Aqua from I say Shalom. And this is a sit-down lesson of the prophecy updates as of March the 11th, 2026 on this Wednesday afternoon. And it says Ukraine attacking Russia gas pipeline to stop deliveries to Europe. Defense Ministry has said, right, because we've been seeing the tensions been heating up between Russia and Ukraine once again. It says a probe find the U.S. fault in the deadly Iranian school strike, right, because most likely the Israel Defense Force might be behind that, but they're trying to put the blame on the Iranians, but it was most likely them had it, either them or the United States. Australia helping U.S. rain down horror on Iran, Senator reports. It says Trump's attorney general moves into military house over threats, media reports. Spanish removes ambassador from Israel. Right, because we've been seeing the division between Esau and Edom. Because the scripture says, that was that Mark the 3rd chapter. If a kingdom be divided, except the kingdom not stand. And we're seeing that Revelation 17, verse 16 is in full effect. It says the African Union issues a warning over Gulf instability. Right, especially with the oil stuff taking place with the war between Russia and the United States. Even though they have, even though they had relief, some oil, I believe it's like a good amount of oil was released. This was like the emergency oil was released in history, I believe. But that's still not going to stop the fact oil prices continue to go up while this war in Iran, this war Iran versus Israel is going to continue to heat up, It says the UK is behind a deadly storm shadow missile attack on Russian city. And keep this in mind, you've been definitely been having on and on back and forth tensions heating up between, the United Kingdom and Russia. And then you had the European Union and NATO versus Belarus and Russia, while the Russia-Ukraine situation is heating up as well too. Because, throughout the years, I would say for the past 4.5 years, ever since this war in Ukraine been heating up from February of 2022 all the way to now, you've been having Russia been going against the Ukraines and the European Union and NATO, and then you have the UK been delivering military assistance to Ukraine while the war is going on between Russia and Ukraine, been heating up ever since then. So I just want to add a side note to that. And then I believe last month you had the Prime Minister Starmer over there in the UK had sent a stealth fighter jet over there in the Black Sea, if I'm not mistaken, because you've been having tensions been heating up over there in that region between Russia and Great Britain. So these are signs of wars, rumors of wars, and these are divisions between the Edomite nations. It says that the UK is behind the deadly storm shadow missile attack on Russian city. Criminal reports. 7 people were unalive and dozens were injured after a British-made weapons in Bryansk, according to the local officials. Get to that Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. So the tensions are heating up between Russia and Ukraine and the European Union and NATO versus Russia. It's cold out there. Sure is. Yeah. Yeah, it do. Yeah, back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38 and verse 4. It says, "And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth in all thy army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed for all sorts of armor. Yeah, all sorts of armor, even a great couple of buck shields, all of them having swords." So as we see in Ezekiel, the 30th chapter is in full progress, is in full effect. As we've been seeing, Russia, they continue to be in that warlike mindset. And it's the prophet Isaiah was mentioned that Russia represents the bear, that, Russia is in a continually warlike mindset as the Russian-Ukraine situation is intensifying by the day. And this is Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 5. It says, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, with all of them shall of him, because you do got Russia as allies to Iran, and Ethiopia, Libya as well too. With all of them with shield of helmet, because you do got military bases of Russia over there in Libya as well too. Then you've been having missile ships and ships been sailing through Ethiopia as well too, in parts of Africa, in the land of Ham and the land of Cush as well too. And then you had that and then you've been having military exercise drills of Russia and Iran, and economic alliance and military alliance been heating up with Russia and Iran. It says Persia, which is Ethiopia, because you had Russia, I believe, what was that, last week or not that recently, a couple of days ago. You've been having Russia been helping Iran reportedly. I don't know if it's true or not, but helping about intels about like certain areas so they can help them out to like use certain target strikes against, the Israel Defense Force against Iran.
Hello.
I meant to say against the United States Army, special military bases over there. And that's why you've been seeing heavy airstrikes over there in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf regions, because you got an increasing U.S. interest over there in Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, in all those areas over there, because you got U.S. military bases, U.S. interests over there. That's why the Israel Defense Force has been using heavy airstrikes in the pro-Iranian groups as well, too. So we definitely see Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, is in full effect. Verse 6, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togomor of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with you. Right, because Turkey, they got military bases over there in Iraq and Syria as well, too. Because their main target is going to be the Israel Defense Force. Because you're going to have the proxy groups, the pro-Iranian groups, they all going to team up together, right along with the Dragons of Arabia, because the Dragons of Arabia is going to remember themselves. And as we starting to see that increase once again. So they're gonna settle their differences. They're gonna be their main target is gonna be the Israel Defense Force over there in the Golden Heights, in between the borders of Israel as well too. This is Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 7. Be thou prepared, prepare for thyself. Yep, it says, be thou prepared, prepare for thyself, and all thy companies that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Right, so Russia is gonna be a guard to these nations. Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey. And their main target is going to be the Israel Defense Force. And that's why you're seeing high tensions are heating up over there in the area, over there in the Strait of Hormuz, over there in the Persian Gulf, over there in the Gulf regions, over there Western Asia, throughout that whole region. The Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea. So tensions are only going to heat up over there in the area. So we definitely see Ezekiel, the 30th chapter, in progress. So at the same time, while the Russia-Ukraine situation heating up as well too, and you had the ongoing tensions are heating up between NATO and Russia, while the Russia-Ukraine situation is taking place right now as we speak. This is Ezekiel chapter 39 and verse 1. It says, Therefore thou son of man, prophesy against God. They said, Thus saith Yahweh Shema Shai, Behold, I am against thee, O God, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, right still to this day. Ezekiel chapter 39 verse 2. It says, And I will turn thee back and leave but the sixth part of thee, and I will cause to come up from the north parts, and I will bring thee upon the mount of Israel. Ezekiel 39 verse 3. And I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and I will cause the arrows to fall out of thy right hand. Con. And this is the prophet Isaiah. As you continue to see the Israel Defense Force, they still on high alert. Because you're going to have more military deployment over there in the Golden Heights and over there in Israel. Of an increasing cross-border conflict. We're going against the proxy groups, the pro-Iranian groups, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're going to continue to be clashing against the Israel Defense Force. So it's going to be a cross-border conflict. So near Damascus, over there in Damascus, and throughout southwestern Syria, southern part of Syria. So it's only going to continue to be increasing conflicts over there in the area. So this is a future prophecy, that we see in the making about prophecies about Damascus, as the prophet Isaiah was mentioned. Isaiah 17 verse 1, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus take away from me in the sea, and it should be his ruin heap. Right, so Damascus, Assyria is going to be taken away from me in the sea, should be his ruin heap. This is Isaiah chapter 17 verse 9. It says, in that day shall his strong city as be forsaken and brought in uttermost branch, which they left because the children of Israel should be desolate. Right, so that land is going, Damascus, Syria is going to be desolate, because it makes perfect sense, because you're still going to have heavy escalations and tensions heating up over there in the area. Now, despite the fact, like a month and a half ago, they signed a peace deal between the Syrian Defense Force and the Kurdistan armies. Now, potentially, you got the Kurdistan armies. They might go against the security forces of the pro-Iranian groups. We're gonna see how that plays out. But as of right now, they kind of been skeptical about not joining them. So I won't be surprised that the Kurdish groups team up with the pro-Iranian groups and go against the Israel Defense Force. And that's why we're seeing Ezekiel the 38th chapter in progress, because Russia is going to be guarded to these nations: Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey, and the Dragons of Arabia. So they're going to settle their differences potentially, and they're going to be going against the Israel Defense Force. So best believe you're going to have an increasing cross-border conflict heating up between Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza Strip, West Bank, Palestinian territory, throughout those whole regions over there in Western Asia, over there in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf Seas as well too. And these are signs of Third World War is knocking at the door, it's heating up. This is the book of Luke 21. Luke 21 verse 25. It says, there shall be signs in the sun, and the moon, and the stars, and upon the earth disgressive nations will perplexity rage worm. Right, so that's what we see in our world today. The nations are in perplexity, as we see in the uproars of people world. We see a nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, seditions, uprisings, uproars, people world. We see war, evil, and the pestilence, especially wars category. So that's going to continue to increase. So we got these geopolitical wars, economical wars, trade wars, the war on water, was kind of crazy. The war on oil, which they've been going on for a very long time. We're starting to see that take place once again. So these are signs that we're seeing that nations are in perplexity, and we're seeing the signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth transgressive nations will perplexity rage warring. This is the book of Mark chapter 3 and verse 24. It says, and if a kingdom be divided itself, the kingdom not stand. Right, that's what we're seeing. If a kingdom be divided itself, the kingdom not stand. And that's what we're seeing. This is Mark chapter 3, verse 25. And if a house be divided itself, the house cannot stand. Right, so if a house be divided itself cannot stand, that's what we're seeing. This is Isaiah. Yeah, prophet Isaiah chapter 13. Yep, Isaiah 13, verse 17. It says, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which they should not regard silver, and as of gold, they should not delight in it. Right, so the Medes, the Russians against Babylon, as for gold and silver, they should not delight in it. So ever since February the 5th of last month, that nuclear treaty arms deal was expired between Russia and the United States. Even though a couple of weeks after that, they was supposedly had some negotiations over that meeting that they had over there in Geneva, Switzerland, I believe. But that was around the same time the talks was going on between Iran and the United States. But after the third round of talks supposed to be happening between Iran and the United States, but hey, the United States ghosted. They snaked and ghosted the Iranians. What they did was kind of bogus. They just went ahead and did a surprise attack against them like 2.5 weeks ago, as we entering the 11th and 12th day of this war. And so we definitely seeing all this is playing out. Ezekiel the 38th chapter, Isaiah 17 verse 1, Joel the 3rd chapter, Revelations 11 verse 14. Wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. All is going to lead into the Third World War. This is Isaiah 13 verse 17. I just want to add a side note to that. Isaiah 13 verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes, which the Russians, in which nation I regard silver, and as for gold, and they shine light in it. What's that? Jeremiah the 50th chapter, that the Heavenly Father's going to use a nation, send a nation from the north against the mystery daughter of Babylon. Babylon the Great, the virgin daughter of Babylon, Jeremiah the 50th chapter, verse 51, Isaiah 47 chapter. Hey, we're gonna see that future prophecy of Jeremiah, the 49th chapter as well too. Hey, the least of the flock should draw them out, and that prophecy about Elam as well too of Iran. And so prophecies are unfolding, so that's something going to continue to increase. Isaiah 13 verse 17, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which they shall not regard for silver as for gold, they shall not delight in it. So the tension between Russia and the United States is only going to continue to heat up, despite the fact they're trying to de-escalate tensions, but the tensions are still going to be there. Now that this nuclear treaty arms deal between Russia and the United States has expired, they're going to give Russia a green light to building up more and more of their nuclear capability. They're going to make it worldwide, as Putin made that announcement last month about making his nuclear capability more globally and increasing it now so more than ever. So that's an indicator that the tension between NATO and Russia is only going to heat up. The European Union versus NATO versus Belarus and Russia. And then Russia versus United States, that's only going to continue to heat up. And that's why we're seeing Ezekiel, the 30th chapter, playing out, And this is the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Right, so let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. And that's what we're seeing as the nations are being gathered up over there in Western Asia throughout that whole region. And this is Revelations 11, verse 14. The second will pass, behold, the third will come quickly. Right, so the second will pass, behold, the third will come quickly. Armageddon, Armageddon 1. This is the book of Luke 21. Salakia. This is the Gospel of Luke 21 in verse 9. It says, red letter, Yahushua speaking through the Holy Scriptures. It says, but when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by end by. Right, so it's going to come to pass, but it's not going to yet just end by end by. So on a daily basis, we're going to be seeing the rising uptick of these economical wars, trade wars, nuclear wars. Tensions are heating up on a daily basis. Oil wars, nuclear wars, water wars, global economy wars, trade wars, you name it, all those many different categories. And that's why we're seeing the nations are in perplexity because of that. That's only going to continue to increase. This is things to come. Luke 21, verse 10. Then say he unto them, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Right, that's what we're seeing. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. That's only going to continue to increase. And get back to more news articles. Matter of fact, before I get to that, this is Matthew's, another precept. Matthew's 12 and verse 25, and it reads to the Holy Scriptures. It says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts from their hearts and mind. He say unto them, every kingdom divided itself shall be brought to desolation. Right, that's what we're seeing. Every kingdom divided itself shall be brought to desolation. Thus saith Hamashiach Yahushua. And every city or house divided itself shall not stand. Right, and that's what we're seeing. And check out the news now. It says U.S. struggles to evacuate personnel from facilities under fire in Iraq. Wars and rumors of wars. Iran declares bank companies with U.S. and Israel ties targeted in war. Yep, wars and rumors of wars heating up. It says a pro-Iranian hacking group claims responsibility for cyber attacks in Scrickler from ABC News. So you're going to have a cyber war, trade war, nuclear war, economical war, and many different wars that we're seeing taking place. What that scripture says, Ecclesiasticus, the 3rd chapter, we're living in a time of war, and we're living in a time of HATE, in a time of war, so that's something that will continue to increase. It says aid worker killed in a drone strike on building used by Congo relief staff. Right, because you're going to have high tensions heating up over there in Congo, and tensions over there in Myanmar, different parts around the world heating up on a day-to-day basis. It says North Korean leader watches cruise missile test with his daughter. Right, because Kim Jong-un, they've been building up his nuclear capability. Been firing his missiles for the past, I would say, consecutively 7 years right now. As tensions been heating up over there in the Korean Peninsula, North Korea versus South Korea, Japan, United States as well too. as I add a side note to that, it says bunkers in England being loaded with bunker busters and a sign of increasing of air primacy over Iran. It says Iranians wounded more troops than Trump admissions let on from the raw story. We get it. You've been building connections all day. Go ahead, demolish that personal record. Tonight, Makita. Tomorrow, you shine. It says Iran war leads to a historical closing of the Strait of Hormuz. Why not Premium Wireless for $15 a month? Who about you? Premium Wireless for $15 a month will always Premium Wireless for $15 a month. And sometimes Premium Wireless for $15 a month every week. No points for subtlety, right? Let's be honest. Premium Wireless for $15 a month. Well, so with that, hopefully this prophecy updates was edifying. Yeah, hopefully these prophecy updates was edifying as of March the 11th. Salakia.
Hello, Moto.
Yeah, so as I mentioned again, so hopefully this prophecy updates was edifying as of March the 11th, 2026.
Hello, Moto.
Great Father. So with that, as I mentioned again, Salaki for the interruption. Oh, what's up, man? Yeah, cut it off. Yeah.
Rest mode.
Yeah, rest mode. Yeah, I think it had was that campaign co-op campaign update or something like that.
It was zombies too.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's what it showed on the. Excuse me. It says yeah, so as I mentioned once again, this was just a prophecy updates as of March the 11th, 2026 on this Wednesday afternoon. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Karkadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Ba'Shem, in the name of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, Ba'Shkadash, the holy tongue. And I say Barakathon to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim Akwaf. Till next time, I would say Shalom.
This the rainbow. Taste the rainbow. DK ESPN is now the home of MLB.tv.